This video is my film study attempt to answer the Christian Mahogany question: should he be a starter for the Detroit Lions in 2026? Third-year guard out of Boston College. It's really interesting to me to go back and watch the film of the Lions from 2025. Look, at the bye, they're 5-2, averaging just over 30 points per game, and then dismantled by the Vikings at home in Week 9. Mahogany was hurt in that game. He did return late in the season. I've got a lot of film here. To be honest with you, I'm going to focus it on everything before his injury, and I'll kind of explain that at the end. But we got 14 plays queued up for you here, so you can kind of make some conclusions of your own. We'll get this started with run concepts first. I think we got 7 run plays, 7 pass plays here at the end. He's the left guard. He'll be spot shadowed in one way or another with the Once Sports Telestrator program that I have. First of all, here against the Browns at home early in the season, it's a jet dive concept. So the running back Gibbs is going opposite of the jet motion, which is by Khalif Raymond. And then you can see the path that the inside linebacker is going to go on because of the flow of Gibbs post-snap. He's going to basically match Gibbs' path. And Mahogany's got the ability to help teammates out. That's the one thing that I notice a lot in checking out his film and focusing on him from 2025, in that you'll get these slight punches. In this case, a little shot with his left hand to help Taylor Decker try to take over that defensive tackle. And then Mahogany, has the speed, the quickness, I should say, to be able to get to the inside linebacker, create this path for Jahmyr Gibbs to go through, and in addition, helped Taylor Decker accomplish his responsibility as well. As an aside, this is the play where the free safety trips Jahmyr Gibbs with one foot. I chose this one to start things off because there's going to be a couple of other plays in this video where you'll see other offensive linemen who basically don't have the quickness and the wherewithal to help out their teammates to the right or to the left on any given snap. Week 3 film here in Baltimore against the Ravens, and some of this was teaching tape from a Mahogany standpoint, especially as it relates to combo blocks. Being able to chip at the first level, the defensive tackle, or maybe a defensive end in some cases, and then move up to the linebacker level. It's a duo concept with David Montgomery, downhill, essentially aiming at the inside leg of Christian Mahogany, at least in terms of his initial path. And Mahogany's going to combo the defensive tackle. That's Travis Jones. Travis Jones is a monster of a defensive player. He's going to dislodge Jones and then work back out to Roquan Smith. And you can see, again, how he helps his teammate, in this case it's Glasgow, accomplish his job or his responsibility. The combo pushes Travis Jones this way, and then Mahogany is quick enough to stay square and get back up to Roquan Smith. I think he's got subtle strength, maybe understated or underrated, if you will. He's a really good guard, in my opinion. I get to watch film of 3 teams. I intentionally watch film of 3 teams during the season, and then, in the offseason as well, the Ravens, the Lions, and the Seahawks. I'll give you some evaluations or maybe rank the guards that I get to see in the last couple of years here at the end of the video. I like his punch/strength. I think he sees the field really well, in my opinion. Another example of this here, Week 7, the 24-9 win here at home against the Bucs. You'll see, you get a better idea, I think, of his quickness and ability to combo from one defensive player to another, even though this is not a successful play for the offense. It's an F counter scheme. So when I say F counter scheme, the guard's going to pull, kick out, tight end's going to motion, and would presumably wrap. But as that happens, the nickel defender on the right-hand side of our screen is going to be totally unblocked. It's impossible for St. Brown to get to him. But in any case, watch the combo that Mahogany gives you on the defensive tackle and then stepping back to the inside linebacker. We're talking about this guy right here, number 8. It only goes down as a short gain, because, like I said, St. Brown has no angle to go get this safety. But watch what Mahogany does. There almost seems to be a little bit of an acceleration. Maybe Mahogany, got dislodged a little bit in combination here with the left tackle. And when I say dislodged, I mean pushed back into the inside linebacker. Watch the impact that he delivers. This is a stronger football player than people give him credit for. I'm comfortable with calling him a tactician because he can execute a multitude of blocks, but he's stronger than he gets credit for, in my opinion. A much more successful snap or play here for Detroit. This 79-yard touchdown run by Jahmyr Gibbs. Radledge and Sewell both do a really great job here. At a certain point during this play, I'm going to pause it, however. I'm not focusing this on Radledge and Sewell. This is, they handle this defensive tackle to that inside linebacker really well. But Mahogany does the same thing. Look at the angles that you've got between Radledge and Sewell and the two players they handle, and then Mahogany and the center and the two players they handle. Essentially, it's a mirrored image, and you're going to see the same thing at the end of the play. Combo here by Mahogany and the center, and I've zoomed in a little bit so you lose perspective of Sewell and Radledge, but we're not focusing on them. What I love is his eyes. He's really good at seeing the second level of the defense while executing a block at the first. And what I mean is the defensive tackle is the first level of the defense, the inside linebacker is the second. Look at the picture that you've got of Mahogany and Radledge. It's almost a mirrored image. In fact, here with the right tackle, right guard, and then here with the center and Mahogany. They're a very good zone blocking team when things are going well, they being the Lions. I think that there's a more of a similarity in talent on run blocking between Mahogany and Radledge than some people would care to admit. In any, and that's, I think, high praise for someone who was a 6th-round pick, being Mahogany. That draft, I had him as a 4th-round pick, but there was the injury concerns. I think something to do with one of his legs that made him fall to the 6th round. As an aside here, as Gibbs takes off on his touchdown run, you get a pretty good view of something that we used to talk about as old football coaches, like I am old at this point, is that he's taken about 2 strides per 5 yards. If I slowed it down, you would see what I mean. It's the way that we used to judge speed on film when you didn't have access to information, like what 40 time an opponent's wide receiver or running back had run in the offseason. He's really good on combo blocks. I'll give you another example of that, and then we'll focus on some one-on-ones, a little bit more moving forward. He operates extremely well in tight space, if you ask me. I think he understands things pre-snap, and then basically he knows where to go. I really wonder what things would have been like in some other reality or outcome if Christian Mahogany had been able to play next to a healthy Frank Ragnow, because Ragnow was so good at combos and understanding what he should do. But in any case, you've got a combination block with the center on the nose tackle, Travis Jones, once again, and then going to work up to Marlon Humphrey. This is a 1st and goal, I should say. I believe this is the 3rd possession, the really long possession that Detroit had, maybe 18 plays. They actually do not score on this particular snap, but they do later in the series. But in any case, the combo up here, he maintains the ability to be strong on the second combination, or the second block. Here's the first one, and while it's happening, you can see that he's got his eyes on Marlon Humphrey, and then he's able to expand Humphrey. They can't get to Malachi Starks here with the outside receiver, and he's really, the first guy to make solid contact on Jahmyr Gibbs. So it doesn't go down as a touchdown, but you get an idea of how smart he is. I think it's going to be really interesting to see Mahogany and Sewell play next to each other, not just in pass pro, but both of them are so good on zone combos and communicating pre-snap. I think it will boost or raise Mahogany's game as well. That's one of the reasons why I think the Miller pick made just so much sense. You now have tandems on the left side of Mahogany and Sewell, and then the right side of Radledge and Miller. Way more enticing, attractive group, if you ask me, than Caden Proctor on the left side next to Mahogany. In any case, we'll move to some more one-on-one stuff, and this is film against the Browns. I'm going to include some reps of Mahogany against Malik Collins in the pass pro section as well, and I think it reflects really well. If you don't know much about Malik Collins, go look it up. 6.5 sacks last year. This play is really similar to college film in the case of Mahogany. Basically, at Boston College, his ability to reach or scoop people. This is the backside of the run concept, so I call it a scoop block. A difference between a reach block, which I'll explain in the next couple of plays that I show. But in any case, Gibbs is going to bounce this one for a touchdown. And since Mahogany scoops Collins so quickly, there's just no one on the backside to pursue. Decker's going to stab real quick on Garrett and then try to work up to the inside linebacker level. He can't really get either of those guys, closed off, but he makes Garrett kind of widen his path. Look how quickly this happens from a Mahogany standpoint. It's a little dangerous the way that he gets it done. There's a crossover step. His feet actually cross over each other, and that's not fundamental in my opinion, or at least what I know about it. I'm not saying that there's never a reason to do so, but in this case, he's crossing his feet and still able to control or turn Malik Collins, cut him off essentially. And there's no help from the center here, I should say. Let me also cover that, meaning the center is not helping him at all by stabbing and then moving up to the linebacker level, the same way that Decker is trying to stab Garrett and then move up to the backside linebacker as well. You could see totally cut him off, even though his feet crossed up, and then Gibbs, bounces it outside. You got a really nice job on the front end here from the two tight ends. I think it's Laporta and Brock Wright. I actually did a video on Laporta about a week ago. If you guys haven't checked it out, I'll link it up in the description or link it up now. I actually talk about this very same play as evidence that Laporta is not just a really good receiving tight end, but he's a good blocker as well. I think Mahogany is, he's not a mauler as a guard. Call him a tactician, that's fine. Radledge isn't a mauler either. Both of them are balanced guards, if you ask me, in pass pro and run blocking who can execute a multitude of techniques. One more run play, and this is a reach block. So this is on the front side of this. I do wonder sometimes about how often Goff points to the air and it ends up being a run play to one side or the other. But in any case, Mahogany is the left guard, and this is the front side of the play. So it's a short toss to Montgomery, and he's going to reach Brent Urban. There's a lot to say about this. Look, Brent Urban's an underrated football player. You as Lions fans, you may not know that. There's a couple of interesting things about Brent Urban. First of all, he's huge. He's 6'7". He's also Canadian, and he plays at a deeper alignment than a lot of other defensive linemen, than really anyone else. You don't really get an idea of it here. I'm talking about where the fingertips are. There's not really much of a differential between his fingertips there and Tavius Robinson's. But because Brent Urban plays at such depth, basically he's off the line of scrimmage. In Canadian football, I think you've got to line up a yard off the line of scrimmage. This oftentimes does not happen, or this doesn't happen very often, I guess is a better way to say it, meaning he gets totally cut off or reached. The difference in the terminology for me, remember the previous play, when Gibbs scored the touchdown this direction, Mahogany had to reach Alfred Collins. He's on the backside of the midline. The ball is going to this direction. This is the point of attack, if you will. And then on the backside was Mahogany with the scoop block. Versus we have the mirrored image here. It's a short toss, so the point of attack is over here to the left. Mahogany is obviously to the point of attack, or he's to that side, so we would call it a reach block. Even though a lot of it is the same, you still get a little bit of that step under himself with the second step. I'm talking about the left foot's already in ground, the next step, the right foot, almost kind of crossing over, but just watch his steps with Decker's. They're the same. Decker's getting under himself a little bit more. With the left foot, there's a little bit more of an understep. With Decker, Mahogany's gaining a little bit of ground. Decker is not. Decker's actually stepping underneath or back behind himself, but it's a great example of a reach block, if you ask me, on a toss concept. When you're at a deficit by alignment, your feet need to be quick, hands need to be excellent. Got to have the strength to get yourself outside to create this lane for the running back when you're operating at a deficit. So what I mean is the run play's going to this side. Brent Urban's outside shoulder is obviously further to the outside, further to our left on the screen than Christian Mahogany's is. He beats him here with his feet, his hands, and his overall strength. This is the type of thing he can do. This is the type of thing he did in college, at Boston College. Doesn't surprise me that we saw some pretty good examples of it, at least early in 2025. Basically, to conclude my analysis / evaluation of his run blocking, I think it's good enough to get the job done and help this Lions team return to consistency at minimum, and hopefully some levels approaching 2023 and 2024. So here's what I mean. We all know that the Lions alternated wins and losses, right? From week 5 win against the Bengals to the week 15 loss against the Rams. Why? A lot of it had to do with run game output or lack of consistency. So, week 4 win against the Bengals, 118 rushing yards. The next week, the 30-17 loss in Kansas City, only 98. Following game, the home win against the Bucs that pushed Detroit to 5-2, 164 yards rushing. Now, 79 of that I actually showed you. The Gibbs touchdown run, I think, in the second quarter. Then the bye, the abomination of an offensive effort at home in the 27-24 loss to the Vikings. Week 9, only 65 rush yards generated. On the road the next week, I think a Sunday night game, maybe a Monday night game against Washington, put up 226. They really probably could have done whatever they wanted. If they wanted to throw for 400 yards that night against Washington and kind of eschew or maybe ignore the run game, they could have. If they wanted to run for 300, they probably could have done that as well. Then on the road again against Philly, 16-9 loss, only 74 yards. And then the crazy win at home against the Giants, 237. My point is, I think Mahogany's injury in week 9 had something to do with that. Losing Laporta as well. The O-line that they put out there in the rematch against the Vikings, it was just a patchwork group. In any case, let's move to the pass pro stuff. I think prior to the injury, he played spectacular at times in pass pro. He's got a deep pass pro bag as far as the techniques or the things he tries to accomplish. I rewatched 5 games before week 9. And then I watched the final 3 to finish the year when, of course, Mahogany gave up 3 sacks. Basically, I think he's a different player at that time, and I'm evaluating him at his most, the healthy version of him that'll hopefully start 2026. All right, so here we go. It's a 3rd and 3 against the Ravens, and him and Decker handle a stunt really smoothly. Almost makes me wonder if there was some type of indicator here. Decker's looking directly in at the defensive tackle, or maybe he's looking at Mahogany, waiting for Mahogany to move, and he's reacting from that. But from here, Decker does a really nice job, if you ask me, and so does Mahogany. So letting the D tackle go to Decker or flow to Decker, but he also kind of pushes him a little bit, and that helps Decker just kind of swat him down, and then takes over Mike Green, the rookie edge defender for the Ravens that they drafted in the 2nd round. Look at the space and the lane that Goff had. Like I said, it was a 3rd down, and those guys handled it really well. I wanted to show this one because of the maneuverability, the agility, I guess, if you will, that Mahogany showed here in working in combination with Taylor Decker. The ensuing week, the road win against the Bengals. This is going to be the touchdown pass to Sam Laporta. I think it's on the first drive. But watch the quickness and the violence. And it'll look very similar to some of the run plays I showed you earlier. Mahogany, the quickness and violence that he possesses or that he can put on display in combo blocks. Now, this is a pass play, all right? So the combo block's going to occur here. You go to the D tackle first, and then second down on the nose tackle, basically to help Graham Glasgow. It's one of the things I really like about him, that he's very help-oriented. If he doesn't have, or he suspects he's not going to get a direct rusher, then he's really good at helping his teammates. And it's very similar to what I said earlier. Compare his reaction on some of those run plays to other guys on his team, particularly Taylor Decker, who just didn't have the mobility or the agility to try to help one guy and then move up to the second level. In any case, Laporta's moving off screen. It's a mismatch clearly for him. I covered this play in the Laporta film study that I did last week, out there in space against the defensive end. I think it's Joseph Asai. There's a lot of underrated plays here, in my opinion, for Mahogany from 2025. I like the Miller upgrade a lot and the floor strengthening signings of free agents or veterans. But to me, returning, and Derek Moore being drafted in the 2nd round, but to me, the return of Laporta and Mahogany to 100% health status, hopefully, for the whole season, is the biggest factor right now that I think is going to boost this offense at least. Against the Browns, and of course, they have a ferocious pass rush, obviously, led by Myles Garrett, right? But Malik Collins is a veteran, 6.5 sacks last year. If you don't know much about him, feel free to go look up Malik Collins' highlights on YouTube from 2025. They will include a number of plays against the Baltimore Ravens. He really gave us problems. But Mahogany does kind of get beat up some here in some of these plays, I should say, against Malik Collins, but he's able to stay in front. And I'm going to compare. I want to ask you to compare that to a rep against Chris Jones a little bit later. Basically, there's one pass set, one style pass set that I wonder if Mahogany shouldn't just kind of keep in his bag. So compare this one that you're seeing here as far as the path. And at least, even though things don't look really pretty here, at least he's able to stay in front. The pressure comes from the right-hand side. It's Myles Garrett against Penei Sewell. But compare this one with Mahogany to something you're going to see a little bit later. It might actually be the last play I show you in this video, where he kind of tilts forward on Chris Jones, and it almost really resembles what I would call a jump set. And that's one that I feel like should be put away, depending on the matchup, that is. Mahogany gave up 4 sacks in the final 3 games. I think that is, common knowledge at this point. Prior to the injury, broken bone in his leg, I think that he was pretty solid and capable of handling these big, strong, athletic defensive tackles like you saw there. As an aside, in preparing for this video and the Laporta one last week, there's a lot of instances like the play you just saw where Goff is escaping some pressure, and yes, some of them were from Penei Sewell's side, to be honest with you, but then throwing the football to execute or convert, especially on 3rd down. Same game against the Browns. He's going to be one-on-one with Collins. This is a little bit of a wide hands approach. I'm intentionally zooming in on some of these and giving you a look at the technique that he uses. When I said he's got a deep bag, this is what I mean. That Mahogany has multiple pass sets that he uses. Even though the guard position is different from tackle, you can still kind of differentiate from them. But in any case, I'm not a fan of him jumping guys, even though here you can see the way that he steps. He's certainly not getting any ground backwards, and he's using those wide hands, if you will, that so many bigger, stronger offensive linemen with long arms kind of rely on to essentially hold. He has this available depending on the matchup. I wouldn't say that this is what you would like to see him do all the time, and he doesn't. Christian Mahogany has options basically in pass pro. He's a fighter, in my opinion, in pass pro. Basically, when I say fighter, I mean someone who will stay in the fight as long as possible. Think like combat sports analogy. He's a guy who might lose some early rounds, the first split second of the snap, but he's able to stay in the fight and at least keep himself between the quarterback and the defensive tackle. I do think that the wide hands are a recipe for disaster if you're doing that all the time. Guard is different from tackle. I get it. But as an option, this kind of pseudo jump set with the wide hands, it is something that showed up on film, in particular against the Bears. The win against the Bears, 52-21 at home, even though it didn't show any plays here from that win. All right, let's move forward a little bit chronologically as far as the season goes and show. I think the last 3 plays I have here are from the 30-17 loss to the Chiefs. A couple of one-on-ones, all right? This was a game that included, obviously, a missed opportunity in the second quarter. I'll talk about that possession in a little bit. But he ends up anchoring down here. He's just got he has all the reactions, the reads, the skills, and the strength, in my opinion, to be a high-level professional guard. All-pro, Pro Bowler. I'm not sure about those things, but I don't think that he's going to be the weakest link on this Detroit offensive line in terms of reliability in 2026, so long as he's healthy. This is a truly ridiculous throw from Goff. And again, I also dealt with this one in the Laporta video from last week. The angle that Goff has, or really I should say doesn't have, you can kind of see Laporta down here at the bottom side of the screen. This inside linebacker is in the lane or the window, or he's in the space between Goff and Laporta. Now, I know that it's kind of disoriented a little bit because of the zooming in, but I'm basically doing that intentionally to show you that, and there's more than one example of this whereby if there is pressure on Goff, it didn't come from Christian Mahogany. It's oftentimes from the tackles, to be honest with you, whether it's Decker, Sewell, or in this case both. One of the best throws that I saw from all of 2025, Goff throwing this thing around the inside linebacker almost bending it around him to Laporta. It's on a 1st and 10 where Laporta lined up at outside wide receiver. Hopefully, I'm giving you the right plays to allow you to see what Mahogany's good at. He has the one set that I'm not a fan of that I'll show you here in a moment, but you're talking about a guy with a lot of options from a pass pro standpoint and someone who can execute gap or zone run schemes on 1st and 10. There's a time and place for every set, and it's good for Mahogany to have a lot of options. This is a missed opportunity for Detroit, even though they do convert this 3rd down and 4. It's an unusual manner in which they get this done. They're up 10-6 with the football in the 2nd quarter. It looks like to me Jones is kind of looking for a swipe here against Mahogany, and Mahogany ends up with his right hand kind of outside of the arm of Jones and almost lifts the shoulders up a little bit, grabbing the jersey. But in any case, there's no movement by Jones, he doesn't think there is. Jones doesn't think there is, because watch him. He just stops the bull rush and starts to move in this direction. Now, that actually opens up the lane for Goff to scramble. This is a scramble by Goff for the 1st down. Unfortunately, we got to watch St. Brown drop a ball here in a moment. I think it's a pretty good rep for Mahogany. We're focusing on him. The next one will not be, but I think this is a pretty good rep and gives you an idea of what I'm talking about, that he's a fighter. Within each rep, he can compete and just stay on top of guys, basically stay in between or mirror them, stay in between them and the quarterback. How many sacks Mahogany allowed for the season, I don't know. I'm just looking at the film of what I see. Like I said, 5 games before the injury in Week 9, including the Week 9 loss at home to the Vikings, and then the last 3 games he played this season. If you want someone to just quote you PF scores and that type of stuff, you come to the wrong place. I'm going to watch the film, tell you what I think for better or worse, and you either agree with it and like the evaluation I give you, or you don't. I think we'll all be able to agree or analyze this one accurately. I do not prefer this jump set against Chris Jones. There's a time and place for those things. Nonetheless, on this 4th and 2, his ball should be caught. Detroit can't go for the field goal here. I think that at the snap, the ball is just past midfield. Maybe it's on Kansas City's 44. Definitely a jump type set here, and watch Mahogany get his nose over his toes or out in front of them and kind of start tilting over a little bit forward. And that's the exact moment when Jones grabs with the outside hand, controls that outside shoulder, swims over the top, and you can see he's cleared here. He's actually almost kind of trying to use his right hand to push off of the left tackle, which is kind of cool. But in any case, it's a move that I think Mahogany should keep and use against certain guys and not others. Malik Collins, you guys heard me talk about him earlier. I think he's a really good defensive tackle. Doesn't have the same length as Chris Jones, number one. Number two, height and ability to use the swim move quickly. This is one of the ones that, I wonder how many sacks or pressures Mahogany gave up in 2025 on this particular type of set. Basically, as a Lions coach, I'm sure they have access to that information, have gone over it multiple times, either with Mahogany or as a staff, essentially saying, hey, he used this particular pass set or technique 55 times and only gave up 2 pressures, versus the jump set. I would bet that the pressures / sacks allowed are a whole lot higher. Kind of can't believe what happens after I unpause this, even still months later. To watch St. Brown drop a football is just a little shocking that this ball hits him right where it should be, despite Goff taking multiple hits on the same play. The worst rep that I showed you, I think, here for Christian Mahogany happened to occur against the best player he saw, right? Chris Jones. I think Mahogany is a starting caliber guard, and I think he could be a very good one. In my opinion, based on what I have seen, the jump set should be reserved for certain situations or matchups. Basically, not the guys with the insane length, height, and swim move that Chris Jones has. Because Mahogany can stay in the fight, I'm talking about pass pro, during the play, right? Not the fight as in an entire game, but each particular rep or snap. I think he's going to absolutely be the starter to begin 2026. I know Miles Frazier is another option. Juice Scruggs is someone that they brought over. I gathered a ton of plays for this video. I'm convinced that Mahogany's the starter. Let me tell you why. We'll start with the final product. I probably have 20 or 25 plays that I consider for the final product. Here I gave you 14. One level up from that in the workflow is probably 40 to 45 plays that I consider using. And another layer or prior to that in the production process, I've tagged multiple plays as Mahogany using the Once Sports Analyser program. It's ridiculous. I mean, it makes, there's unbelievable aspects or functions to the program that you guys as the viewer don't need to know about at all. But what they do is they allow me to get things out quicker and hopefully more efficiently, and hopefully the graphics look good as well. But in any case, Mahogany, I evaluated Mahogany when he was healthy. I guess that's what I'm saying. I had 14 or 15 plays of him that I omitted from his return late in the season. Why? Right? Especially the Vikings game. The O-line that they put out there, it just wasn't good enough at all. That wasn't his best film. Could it happen again in 2026? Could he play injured? Sure. All right. Absolutely. But guess what? There's some really bad reps from Penei Sewell when he was playing hurt last season, right? And here's the reason why I bring that up. If I did a video of Penei Sewell, and an all-pro, perennial all-pro, future Hall of Famer in my opinion, and I did the evaluation and I included 8 or 10 plays from last year when I believe he was playing at 70, 75%, meaning Sewell, what would you say? Basically you would say, hey, that's not Sewell at his most healthy. Well, I did the same thing for Mahogany. I think I'm being consistent here. I'm looking forward to seeing him and Sewell line up next to one another on run plays, in pass pro, combination blocks, stuff like that. I think Mahogany's a tactician, very quick, very smooth. I've certainly given you enough film to illustrate that he's got the strength to execute one-on-one blocks in the run game especially. I think probably the run game is a little bit more of his strength, in my opinion. Again, I don't know the metrics or the scores or the data. I really don't care. I watch the film, tell you what I think, and show you at the same time, for better or for worse. I think I gave you enough film here to illustrate that his run blocking is probably better than his pass pro, especially later in the 2025 season. Do you like the potential of the O-line, the projected starting O-line in 2026, left to right, Sewell, Mahogany, Cade Mays, Radledge, Blake Miller? I do. I think Cade Mays is probably the least accomplished of the group, along with Mahogany, I should say, those two guys. You guys will have to let me know if you enjoyed the video. Whether you agree or not about the plays. I'm trying to provide as much depth as possible, what he's good at, maybe what should be put away or put on the shelf in certain matchups. Put it this way, and I alluded to this a little bit earlier. There's 3 teams I get to intentionally watch during the season, every week, and then in the offseason. Ravens, Lions, and Seahawks, right? In my opinion, last year, 25, Mahogany starts for every one of them, for all 3 of them. He's certainly better than the 2 guards that Baltimore rolled out last year. He's way better than Bradford, the right guard in Seattle. So when I'm giving you my evaluation, I'm mentally able to compare Mahogany to the other guards on those teams. So the best one, right? Gray Zabel, clearly. Radledge is really good at some things, but not others. I would say if you ask me to compare them, Radledge and Mahogany, both at full strength, full health, are closer to one another than Radledge is to Gray Zabel. I recognize that you may not like hearing that. So for that reason, I like what Brad Holmes has done with the O-line. Mays as the center, to me, is the biggest question mark, as long as Mahogany stays healthy, right? You do still have Miles Frazier. Colby Sorsdahl, I guess, is still in the mix. Juice Scruggs, they brought over from the Texans. I like producing these videos, trying to give you guys as much depth as possible and go a little bit further with a player than I'm able to maybe during the regular season. You're talking about 8 games that I watched for this video. So if you enjoyed it, please A, let me know in the comment section with a comment, or B, like the video, or C, consider either donating or possibly grabbing the link to this video and sharing it out on social media so that my work can get more exposure. Appreciate you guys' time.